Okay, well, let's get on with the class. We're a little bit late getting started.
I didn't see that video on the molecular group. I saw it on the keys, but I couldn't find it on the molecular group.
Oh, really? Well, we'll have to put it up to the top again. Okay. Um, okay, we're beginning, I believe this is class 12 on the molecular relationship. And we were talking about the differences in energies and principles of making a marriage work. Uh, when people think of making a marriage work, they think of, personality versus personality and making adjustments with the personality and everything like this. But according to the teachings in the molecular relationship, that's just a small part of what it takes to make a relationship work. The most important thing is to have the energies be compatible. If the energies are compatible, you don't even have to think about, well, I got to do this and that to make this person happy. It's just that there's an interplay and everything will just work if the energies are in harmony. If they're not in harmony, then it will take a lot of work. Then you'll have to put a whole bunch of attention on keeping your partner happy and making sure you don't do this or that wrong and all this. But if the energies are in sync, so that the energies are in balance, so you two together are close to the 0 point, then you don't even have to worry about it. Everything just functions and works quite well. Uh, have you ever had a friend like that? Forget about romance, but we've all had limited associations in romantic relationships, and for some people, they've all been bad. A handful have had really good ones, but we've all had friends, a lot of friends. So have you had friends that you just get together and there's no effort at all? It's just the interplay is pleasant. You enjoy being with this friend. It's because your energies are compatible. If your energies are compatible, then the two of you don't even have to try. It's just that the interplay uh, is seamless and peaceful, and you don't have to put a lot of effort into it. And that's nice to have a relationship that you don't have to think, well, I got to make sure I got to say the right thing. Like a good old friend, you can get together and you can say something completely politically incorrect, and he or she understands what you're thinking and saying, and he doesn't condemn you. He doesn't say, hey, you need to shape up. um, if you get too far off base, he might say, well, I understand you, but you probably ought to be careful around other people. But so that's a great part about a relationship where the energy is compatible. But people don't think of energies. They just they look for the exterior signs in friendship and in romance and in all relationships. They look at the exterior rather than sensing what's going on inside of both of you. When you sense that, then you understand what's going on. If two aren't in sync with energy, and somebody says something, maybe he his intent is completely harmless, and the other guy will say, well, you're a racist, or you're this bad person because you just said this. And but a good friend, when the energies are in sync, the one friend will look at the other and he will know what he really meant. And this is one of the interesting things about near-death experiences revealed, as well as regressions where they've taken people back into the spirit world in between lives, is when you're interviewed for your life review, one of the things that you see is you see everybody in your life and how they felt when they performed various actions, especially when they did something that offended you. And then what you see, according to the regression information, what you see is you are able to place yourself completely in their shoes so you understand why they did what they did or why they said what they said, and all of a sudden you see your reaction as completely inappropriate. Wasn't them that was so inappropriate, even though they might have been, but they from from one point of view, but from a wholeness point of view, then you begin to understand that, we're just really in the same boat together. We're all struggling to be our best, but we all see it in different ways. But if we could understand how the person sees it through his or her eyes, then we would rarely, if ever, condemn them. We would understand them rather than condemn. And this is the key uh, to making good friendships, good relationships, good romance, uh, good marriages, good relationships of any kind work, is understanding, having a sense of understanding about the intent and the feelings of the other person. Instead, the natural man, he concentrates on his own feelings, his own hurts, his own desires. The more spiritual person will be thinking more about how the other person is affected and about uh, the way that he or she looks at things.
That's important in letting go of judgments, people will condemn their parents. Oh, I had such a rotten childhood, or my mother never loved me, or whatever. But if you put yourself in your mother's shoes, how was she loved? Now, maybe she did the best she could with what she had, and if you can project yourself into her shoes or your father's shoes, it's much easier to forgive them and move on than hold a judgment.
That's a great point, Curtis, and the fact that you meet so many people that feel their lives are screwed up because of their parents. I could probably make a case for my parents screwing me up as much as anybody, because my dad was pretty much alcoholic. My my when my mom married my dad, she thought she was marrying a good Mormon. But when they got home from the marriage, the first thing my dad said to my mom, he said, well, it come time to go to church the next Sunday. And my mom says, well, let's get ready and go to church. And he says, well, I've been forced to go to church all my life. I'm tired of church and I'm never going again. And my poor mom, she was just really disappointed because she thought she got a good Mormon husband. And so my dad, he went out drinking with his friends all the time. And my mom concluded, well, if I'm going to have a relationship, I got to go with him. So she started going with him, and she started drinking too. And when they raised us, um, my babysitter was a dog. And the dog was drunk part of the time because my dad, whenever he had a beer, he made the dog drink beer with him. And he poured some beer in the bowl for the dog, and the dog's name was Jack. And my dad says, "Okay, Jack, drink that beer." And first of all, Jack didn't want to drink the beer, but my dad made him drink the beer. And pretty soon, Jack really liked the beer. So when my dad had a beer, the dog had a beer with him. So anyway, this dog was my babysitter. They go to a park, put my uh, baby carriage or whatever it was there, and my dad and mom would take off, and my dad would say, "Okay, Jack, watch the kid." And if anyone come near me, he just chase them off, so nobody could ever come near me because this dog was my babysitter. So anyway, that was kind of my start in life. And then as we got older, my parents were always gone, and I had to babysit my sister from the age of 6. She was 4 years younger than me. And from about the age of 6 on, I was the babysitter, and they'd take off partying, and I would babysit. And finally, when I got a little bit older, uh, I got fed up with them coming home late, and I was always worried about my mom. I was worried about my mom a lot more than my dad. I never worried about my dad. I kind of felt like he could take care of himself. But me and my sister, when I was in about the 5th grade, I would take my sister and we would go down to the local lounge and try to get them to come home. And instead of that, there was no qualms about us going in the beer parlor at that time. And instead of that, they had us just hang out there while they finished partying. And
Said, here,
so,
go drink that beer.
and so I, tried to make use of my time. So I had encountered different people there, and I had them share their drinks with me, and so I drank quite a bit of beer when I was there myself. Began to kind of got the taste for it, and then they had me and my sister dance for them. So me and my sister danced for everybody there in the bar and stuff like this. So, I could say that I was kind of if I could complain about my parents. Now, all of us kids, was 5 kids in the family, and all of us have stories about our parents and their partying and stuff like this. But none of us have any negative feelings about my dad, even though he is considered the big black sheep in the Mormon family there. And but none of us have any. I mean, he was a really likable guy despite his faults. And
He was quite an entrepreneur too.
it was funny, when I went on a mission for the Mormon church, just before I went on the mission, my dad calls me and he says, I want to spend some time with you before you go on your mission. He says, meet me down in the gym lounge. And that's his favorite bar in Emmett. So I met him there, even though I was a good Mormon. I went in there, well, just wasn't going to drink anything at the time. And so we sit at the bar, and he says, what do you have to drink? I said, well, just give me a soda pop. And so he's sitting there drinking and telling stories. And he speaks to the bartender and he says, boy, he says, I don't know what I'm going to do. He says, whole family is getting religious on me. He says, the kids are going to church. The old lady, she's gone back to church. And now to top it all off, my kid's going on a mission. He says, I got to do all the drinking, all the cussing, all the swearing. He says, I got to go to hell for the whole family. And was kind of the essence of my dad there. And almost everybody else I know with a father like this. Also, when they got divorced, we had no child support, no nothing. We lived in a little shack, and we had to make it by picking fruit with Mexicans, and that was we barely survived. And I could say my dad was negligent, but I still love the guy. I still love him a lot. I think about him, and he was quite a character, a lovable guy, despite the fact that we didn't get a lot of support from him. I'll just tell you one other story. He was a really unusual dad. Like, wasn't the type of guy to play sports with you or anything. I did ask him one time. I says, Dad, I says, can you teach me how to swim? He says, sure, I'll teach you. I'll teach you the same way I learn. What we'll do is we'll get in a boat. We'll go out in the middle of the lake, and I'll throw you in. And he said, then you'll either swim or you'll die. He says, that's the way my dad did with me, so that's the way I'll do with you. And I said, no, 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 don't worry about it, Dad. I says, no problem. And that was the last thing I asked him to try to teach me. But I did learn a lot by watching him. I learned what to watch the guy, and by watching him I learned quite a bit, but I never really asked him to
Teach
teach
you any
me.
more sports. Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing, Joe. He that's how he learned to swim. So you have to look at his relationship with his dad. It probably wasn't that good. So, you know, if you put yourself in your dad's shoes when he was younger, he probably had a fairly abusive childhood. He was thrown into
Yeah.
the lake to learn to swim. That would
Yeah,
be
that's a little off topic, but I will tell you one more story about my dad. My older brother was just getting the age where he was dating girls, and so my mom figured my dad had to have a father-son talk with him about, you know, handling girls and staying out of trouble and stuff like that. So she told him to, she had told him that, well, it's time to have a good father-son talk with your son and set him on the straight and narrow. And my mom listened at the door, and here's what my dad told my brother Bill. He says, well, Bill, you're getting the age where you can kind of go out and have some fun now. He says, let me tell you this, don't get tied down to an old lady like I did. He says, go out and have fun. Have fun, eat, drink, and be merry, and have a good time, because this is the time to really do it. so, and so that's what my brother actually did. He wasn't religious, didn't go to church. He went and had a good time. And kind of followed in my dad's footsteps for a while.
He lived on a sailboat.
And he eventually kind of got a pretty normal life in the end, and was pretty stable in the latter half of his life there. But anyway, my mom made a covenant with herself. I'm not going to let my other son, I'm never going to suggest he talk to my other son like that. So she never let him give me any advice. So I don't think it would have made any difference anyway. But okay. But the whole point is that despite my dad's flaws, I loved him, and everybody in our family loved him. But when I meet a lot of other people with problems with their parents, I mean, for parents that were not nearly as negligent as mine, they have a lot of negative feelings toward them, like they blame their parents or blame other people for everything that's wrong in their life. And I could blame my dad for lots of things, I guess, if I wanted, but none of us kids, to my other family's credit, have any negative feelings toward their dad. We all love him and accept him as the way he is. And this is, I think, what we need to do with family, friends. Just look beyond their flaws to their essence. In their essence, they are trying to do their best in their own way. So that's an interesting point. Now, we were talking about male and female energies, and males and females in relationship takes turns kind of dominating. We talked about the male being the sending energy and the female being the receiving. Now, all of us have both energies in us, but we have more surplus in one than the other. Everyone is a little bit more male than female, or female than male. And so normally a person in a male body will have more sending energy than receiving energy, but we all have both energies. Now, even so, in the relationship, there's certain things like in a marriage relationship, there will be avenues where the female will dominate and avenues where the male will dominate. The female definitely dominates on the emotional level. The male dominates on the physical level. On the physical level, he's stronger, and because he's stronger, he can out wrestle usually his partner if he wants to. He could dominate her physically. Now, on the emotional level, the females dominate the male. It's interesting that if you have a problem with a female and she starts to cry or starts to show strong emotion, it will generally cause the male to almost melt, and he will say, "Okay, whatever you want, we'll do it." You know, because that's a very powerful influence the female has, is on that emotional level. She can break out the emotions in such a way that we think we can dominate on a physical level, but when you go up a level, the domination is even more powerful and faster. So when the female unleashes emotional energy on the male, it produces a very powerful domination, and very quickly. Have you ever like been in an argument or a dispute with a female, and then, like I say, when she gets emotional or starts to cry, all of a sudden you just change instantly? You ever had that happen, Curtis, where you have an instant change when you've noticed that you've hurt her feelings or something?
All the time.
Yeah, right. We just change instantly. So,
We just surrender. We surrender to her, and we think our mind clicks in, and we think, well, I might as well just move over to that new house as opposed to wanting to stay here. She's going to lead me into this new experience, so I just surrender to it.
right. Now, this can happen with male and male using our female sides. Maybe as a male, you've had a confrontation with another male, and you notice he gets hurt feelings. Maybe he doesn't actually cry, but that's his female side coming out. And so even with a male on male, when the emotions start to surface, that has a powerful influence on you. It's usually not as powerful as male and female, though. In a
We
close
usually wouldn't
male-female relationship,
away.
if there's hurt feelings and then they surface in the female, they're very powerful about changing. Then the next step up is the mind. The mind is dominated by male. Of course, both male and females have minds just like both male and female have emotions, but the male energy dominates the mind. And so this is where, but in the mind, the change is a lot slower, it seems like, because with the emotions, when the emotions surface, change can really happen fast because it's really clear. Emotions really make clear what they feel. Whereas the mind, it takes understanding on both sides to be able to understand each other's minds, and it takes quite a bit of effort to get in sync with mind-to-mind communication. And then the next step up is intuition, and the intuition is dominated by female again. And the female energy is very potent there too, because if you have a problem and you don't know how to solve it, and then all of a sudden you contact your intuition, you get an intuitive flash that can change you instantly. So I don't know what there is about the female energy that it can create almost like instant change, whereas the male energy is a lot slower. You know, in the physical plane, we fight wars that last years and years. The emotional plane, once you get a powerful emotional impact, it changes instantly. Like, say, the last incident with the killing of George Floyd, it created a tremendous emotional impact that created instant change. I mean, it was changed that day almost. Uh, whereas, and that was the female energy. Female energy is very powerful. It has almost an instantaneous effect. And the same thing with the intuition. You may have a problem that you're mentally dealing with for years, and then you get an intuitive flash, and you instantly see it, and you instantly change. So the female energy is very powerful about creating change. So we have to be very careful how we deal with the female energy. Just like if you're male and in a relationship, you got to be careful about how you treat your spouse, because they are a package of explosive energy that uh, us males have a hard time understanding. That's why we call them the female mystique, because there's a lot of mystery behind the female energy that is difficult to understand.
I'll
And then
give you a quick example. I was very happy at our last residence. We had an acre out in the country, and it was beautiful. I had a fish pond, spiral staircase. I wanted to live there forever, but it got too much for my wife to handle, and she likes to garden, and it was creating a hardship on her. So she decided it was time to move, and I didn't want to move. Um, she had that place on the market, and she had another place found like that, and here we are in this new place. And it was like a whirlwind of emotional activity, and it didn't matter if I kicked or screamed or what. It just happened because of her desire to change. So that was a case in point. Here we are, and now that we're in this new place, she's got it looking better than the last place. So it was really a good change, much for the better. I followed her.
yeah, so that's it's interesting to contemplate. And in the old days, the comics got a lot of traction making fun of the male and female differences. Now we become so politically correct that comics like Seinfeld, for instance, is complaining. He says, "Hey, I can't even hardly be funny anymore. Everybody's offended so easily." And so, yeah, we need to go back to being kind of laid back and having a little humor, and uh, so it's just interesting to look at the male-female relationships. Now, as we said earlier, when the females are in their energy and the males are in their energy, everything goes a lot smoother, because then it's like rowing a boat downstream. If the female has to assume the male energy and the male assumes the female energy, then it's like they're rowing upstream. So if you have in a relationship the male being focused more on the female energy and the female more on the male energy, they'll have a lot of friction, and their relationship will be very difficult. And they'll have to go to counseling sessions and all kinds of things to try to figure out, well, what can we do to keep each other happy? And the counselor doesn't have a clue about the energies. And because of that, he's just telling them, well, you have to do A, B, C. But those are little things that are just band-aids on the whole problem. The whole problem is with energies. And so the male is happiest when he's able to do some sending. So in every relationship, if you're in a male energy, then look at where you can send in the relationship. There's certain areas where you can send in any relationship, and certain areas where you can receive. And so like in my relationship with my wife, there's areas where I know I'm the sender. And then there's other areas where she dominates, and I just stay out of those areas and let her handle those areas where she dominates. And so we both have our spaces of domination, and this creates a balance where neither one of us feels shortchanged.
You find she's dominant in the house, in the way it looks, in the way.
Oh yeah, everything connected with the physical form. I mean, she even buys all my clothes and dresses me. She tells me what to wear every day, every time we go out. I don't have any say at all there, and it's fine with me. I don't care what I wear, so. But she dresses me pretty good, and she takes everything connected with form. She dominates in. Now, everything connected with spirit, I dominate in. So we both have areas of domination, and we're both happy with it. So works out pretty good. Neither one of us are complaining about that. Now, we talked about different energies too, how some males are much more in the male energy than other males, from say like 1 to 10. Some males are 10, others are down to 3 or 2, and then some females are 10, and then some females are near the 0 point. And so this has to be taken in consideration. Now, sometimes you'll have a relationship where just nothing seems to work, no matter how hard you try. You're just not in sync, and nothing seems to be working no matter what effort you put in. In this case, do you think divorce is okay? Because a lot of Christians think divorce is just pretty much prohibited unless the other partner is just totally unfaithful. And here's a scripture that they quote. Jesus said this. Oh, excuse me. Wrong one. Oh, here it is. But I say unto you that whosoever shall put away his wife, saving for the cause of fornication, causeth her to commit adultery. And whosoever shall marry her that is divorced commits adultery. That's pretty stirring. So the way the Christian world has interpreted this is the only really just reason for divorce is if your partner is unfaithful to you. But notice he didn't say the cause of adultery. He says the reason you can get a divorce, in other words, is if your partner commits fornication. So what is fornication in the scriptures? So what is fornication? That's the key thing. And to find out what it means is we have to look at how the scriptures actually define what fornication is. Curtis, you had something?
Yeah, it's the alienation of the heart.
Right. And in the Old Testament, God says to Israel, he says, you have gone after other gods and you have committed fornication against me. Okay. So in other words, what fornication was, according to the ancient scriptures, was when the heart of Israel no longer belonged to God and went after other gods. Okay. So when the heart wasn't with, and God says, Israel is my wife, Israel is married to me, and yet they've committed fornication because their heart is no longer with me. Okay. So in other words, Israel was married to God, and Israel committed fornication against God when their heart was no longer with the one God. Now, let's apply this to marriage. This is the reason that divorce is acceptable, is if the heart of the person is no longer with the partner. In other words, if you're married to somebody and their heart is no longer with you, they're no longer in love with you, maybe they wish they were married to somebody else, he says, in this case, they're committing then fornication against you, according to the original meaning of the word. So if the person's heart is no longer with you, then the best thing to do is to get a divorce, if that's the case. But if their heart is with you and you divorce them, what happens then is after the divorce, they're still in love with you. Okay, and if they marry somebody else, it's like committing adultery, because their heart is with you, but they're making love to another person. And so as far as the play of energies go, that is esoteric adultery there. So this understanding puts a whole new light on the scripture. So whosoever marrieth her that is divorced commits adultery. So in this way, so if the person hasn't committed fornication, in other words, the wife is still in love with you, you divorce her because maybe you want somebody younger and hot. So, but if her heart is still with you and somebody marries her, the energies will be totally out of balance because her heart still belongs to somebody else. And you can only have the intimate sharing necessary for a complete relationship if both of the hearts are sharing with each other. That has to happen in a marriage or intimate romantic relationship. The hearts must belong together. And if they don't, then the best thing to do is to get a divorce. Of course, you always have to take kids in consideration. A lot of people don't get along together and they stay together for the kids. And that's a point. But especially if the kids are pretty much on their own, then and even then, even with kids, you have to take in consideration the whole. Because if the parents are don't match up in energies, the kids often develop a lot of negativity because of that relationship. And so even with kids, a divorce may be beneficial. I mean, it's always going to be difficult, but in that case, the person has to go by his own soul. You have to research, go by what your inner self tells you, and then go with it. But not getting a divorce just because some religious person tells you God just doesn't want divorce ever unless your partner has an affair. Uh, that's really not according to what the scripture, the intent of the actual scripture, which is quite interesting. Okay, any comments or questions on that? So the whole thing that we have to focus on is the person needs to find a mate that they're compatible with. That's it. Finding a good mate as far as romantic relationships and also friendships needs to create a good balance of energies. And this is important. And this is something that's totally overlooked. If you go to a bar and looking for somebody to match up with, chances are you're going to get a random selection, 50-50 chance the energies will be out of balance to a significant degree. You have to sense the person that you're having a relationship with, whether it's romantic or friendship or whatever, sense the energies. Like I say, we're all on different rays. There's so many different influences. We have the 7 rays influencing us. We have the 12 astrological signs. They are all send us energies that are influencing us. In the world of the soul, where we're free of all these energies directly as we are in the physical, there's a lot more union. But down here on the physical plane, we're subject to a lot of different energies that emphasize our differences more than our similarities. We seem to be much more different here than we are in the world of the souls after we die. So our differences are really emphasized, and this gives us an opportunity to understand energies, how they work, match up the energies, so we can find people we're in harmony with. And those that are different from us, we will understand, we'll think, well, this guy is a lot different from me. He's not a really good candidate for a close friend, but at least I understand him, and I'm not going to condemn the fellow, you know, because he's a Democrat or Republican or whatever. He just he's influenced by quite a bit different energies than I'm influenced, and from his point of view, he's just doing the best he can. Okay, we're going to start chapter 7 next week, and that is the title of that is an interesting one. It's called Sex and Knowing God, because there's a big link between the meaning of sex and the meaning of contacting and knowing God, which is very interesting, and we're going to be discussing that. Okay, any questions or comments before we wrap it up?
The gathering McCall Rainbow picture is on Molecular Group Facebook.
Oh, okay. Okay, good.
Yeah, I got a comment. Yeah. You not only have the ray influences in astrology, but you have your point of evolution.
Yeah, we left that out. That's a good point.
If you marry someone way that you can't communicate with, maybe you're physically attracted, but on the mind you can't connect because they can't share your ideas, and you're out of balance. But I was going to acknowledge our group that meets on Thursday. We all have there are 5 of us that meet regularly. Ed's one, and Pam and Dave and Anthony and myself, and we have a very strong mental, emotional, spiritual connection. So our energies, I just want to acknowledge our group on Thursday, are very compatible and blend very easily. We don't always have an agenda of what we're going to talk about, but we have such a good flow that the communication just evolves, and we talk about, spiritual things, how we're going to make a difference in the world, and our input for each other is a very positive group. So,
yeah, and see, interesting, if there's a big difference in spiritual centeredness, then people like us in this group, when we associate with people that are focused on the material world, they'll look at us and say, "Well, but you're just one of those crazy people into this new age crap," and they will dismiss us, and that's because of the difference in focus and evolution from matter to spirit. And there's nothing worse than like having your marriage partner, for instance, think that you're in league with the devil, or in league with crazy people, and criticizing you all the time. There's quite a number of seekers that have this problem, and I don't think anyone here in our group has that problem, which I'm happy to hear. Most of the spouses are fairly supportive, which we're very fortunate, because there's a lot of people with spouses and friends that have a difficult time forging ahead on the spiritual path because their friends or people in relationship with think they're
and off the deep end.
Yeah, gone off the deep end and kind of gone crazy. So we're fortunate to be able to forge ahead here without too much interference. Okay, any other comments or questions before we sign off?
Yes, JJ, I have a question. I'm wondering, given this knowledge about being aware of the male and female energy, even last week you spoke about 2 types of energy, radiation and magnetism. Is there a place for manipulating these energies? I mean, becoming more aware in a relationship, whether it's a marital relationship or relationship with other persons, and begin to manipulate these sort of energies and say, yeah, well, I can see that I can downplay my masculine energy in this point, in this situation, or maybe I may have to use my feminine energy in this kind of situation. Is there a risk to that? Will that be glamour or illusion, as AP would say?
Did you use the word glamour?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, if you're looking at things in the way they really are, there's really no glamour associated with that. But as long as you are looking at it realistically and dealing with it so it satisfies your inner connection with your inner self, then you're pretty much headed the right direction. And with the male and female energies, there's so much at play there that you pretty much have to go by your inner guidance to be able to get a sense that you're headed the right direction. And it's quite complicated, really. This is why your inner sense is really important, because with your partner, you may not know their rays or all their astrological influences, or maybe even their state of evolution. But so in your interplay, you will get an inward sense, and that's important that that we go with that inward soul contact. This is why soul contact is so important. And for those of you who haven't read my book I have online, Seeker's Guide to Soul Contact, I recommend you go through that. It's 365 lessons to bring you closer to your soul. And the link there is on my free read website, and it's free at the moment. Okay. Anything else before we sign off? So appreciate you guys showing up, and we will talk about everybody's favorite subject, sex and knowing God, next week. So we'll meet the next Sunday at 2 o'clock Mountain Daylight Time.
I just want to say sorry for that audio thing. I didn't realize I was unmuted before.
You're forgiven.
Oh, no problem.
Sorry.
Have a good week, everybody.
You too. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Stay well.
Thank you. Thank you.